Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is the News Brief. Today we're going to be talking about Operation Spiderweb and its significance. And of course, we're going to be discussing it together in the comments, so you don't have to suffer alone, and I don't have to suffer alone. So as per usual, please leave your questions, suggestions, opinions, constructive criticism, anything you have on your mind down below, so I can read all of it, because I really enjoy this back and forth communication. Let's go. So as you and probably the rest of the world, or most of the world, know now, Ukraine carried out one of the most covert operations on the territory of Russia recently. Not just on the territory of Russia, 8,000 kilometers deep into the territory of Russia. And that operation destroyed and damaged about 40 Russian aircraft. Obviously, Russia denies any aircraft being destroyed. They just say some were damaged. According to Ukraine, however, that number is between 40 and 42, and 13 aircraft were destroyed, and the rest severely damaged. I mean, there is also a lot of photo and video proof from Russia showing exactly how big of a damage Russia suffered. But there are so many things that kind of happened around this situation and that this situation influenced. Well, first of all, it's basically a Trojan horse, right? Because Ukraine managed to smuggle drones into the territory of Russia. And, well, Russia is trying to sweep this operation under the rug, but that's going to be hard to do, provided I think literally most of the world has seen it. I had my former boss that I still talk to. She's very sweet and she's a good friend at this point, but we chat sometimes. I had her message me while she's on a vacation in Italy to congratulate me on this attack. I mean, most people do not check the news when they're on a vacation in Italy from New York, so I will tell you, if she knows, a lot of people know. Anyways, thank you for the congratulations. Ukraine did pull off an enormous attack. So it was a Trojan horse, obviously, because Ukraine was able to smuggle drones into Russia in trucks and then launch them from those trucks onto the airfields to destroy those aircraft. According to the SBU, 6 people were involved in this operation from the Ukrainian side, 6 agents, and they were all extracted from the territory of Russia before the operation, so they're safe and sound. According to Russia, however, there is one man, and his name is Anton Timofeyev, I believe, who is a Ukrainian-born man, and he moved to Russia after the Revolution of Dignity and received a citizenship. He was a staunch supporter of the Revolution of Dignity and participated. He was also a DJ in Kyiv, and then he moved to Chelyabinsk and started DJing there, and then recently, in October or so, opened an LLC for sort of like a truck operations company, and Russia says that he's the main suspect and they're looking for him, and they posted pictures of him, you know. Funny thing, again, Ukraine said that there were 6 people involved in this operation, and all of them are safe on the territory of Ukraine and extracted way before this operation happened. So the truck drivers that were driving the trucks apparently had zero clue on what their cargo was. The drones were stored in the roof of the vehicles, with these roofs being remotely controlled to open. And the cargo itself were some wooden boxes, or specially designed wooden boxes, so the drivers of the vehicles literally thought that they were just transporting some specially designed wooden boxes. All of them had a similar story of being hired by businessmen to transport these boxes, and then through their journey, they received phone calls telling them where to park. And as they came out to, I don't know, have a break or whatever, they noticed, and those are the videos that you've seen, that the drones started coming out of the roofs of these trucks and they started hitting nearby airfields, which is honestly a brilliant operation. It was in the works for about a year and a half, and it's a huge thing. A lot of people are kind of not upset, but curious as to why Ukraine is sharing so many details as to how exactly they pulled this operation off if it was so secret. Well, because of the message that it sends. One, it shows that Ukraine is very capable of pulling off incredible asymmetric warfare. If you don't know what that means, that basically means that you would employ unconventional tactics and think out of the box if your adversary is much stronger or bigger or has more advantage than you do. And Ukraine showed that they can do crazy things with a very small budget and with very few resources, right? So this is another time that we're showing that we can do things to Russia, no matter of Russia is so much bigger, you shouldn't be fighting this bigger country for your survival after they attacked you because blah blah blah. Yeah, we should and we can. So this showed Ukraine's ingenuity, and this really showed that Ukraine can do a lot more than people think, and that everyone constantly underestimates us. So much so, actually, that there were some Russian bloggers on Twitter who literally said, and I quote, "This operation makes me, the success of this operation and the failure of Russia to prevent it makes me believe that Ukrainians," or well, the blogger used a derogatory term for Ukrainians, but oh well, that Ukrainians were in charge of planning secret operations during World War II. Because doesn't look like Russia can pull any of this off. And I screamed laughing because that's so funny. Yeah, Ukrainians were the people thrown onto the front line to fight in World War II. And actually, the biggest losses were sustained by Ukrainians because we were just, cannon fodder material that Russia didn't need. And Ukraine also sustained the most damage in the Nazis marching through the Soviet Union. So there we have it. Yes, Ukrainians were in fact in charge of most of the resistance in World War II. So funny, double funny. But anyways, so the truck drivers had no idea. All of those videos online that were quite literally of them being like, oh, look at the technology. What is this happening? Oh my God, look, an explosion. Why are we even hired to drive if there are these unmanned vehicles? It was just, the whole thing was a circus. But another thing that it did is that it put Russia in a very, very paranoid state, because now Russia is actually forced to inspect all of their trucks coming in because they don't know when to expect another blow. And that slows down their logistics. That also costs them money, right? It's personnel that needs to do that. It's dedication of resources. So Russia is now panicked. And it's quite funny because there are already reports, obviously, of them inspecting all the trucks coming in, especially into Irkutsk region. There were 2 major airfields that were targeted, and we took out a lot of Su and Tu aircraft, which those are the aircraft that launch relentless attacks on Ukrainian civilians all the time. Another thing that this accomplished is, well, obviously it showed Russia to be incredibly incompetent on the world stage, but also it happened right before the Istanbul talks on June 2nd, where, according to the president, Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, the Russian delegation was actually very quiet and arrogant, but quite respectful. I wonder why. Their faces in the videos, they just looked like they're having a really bad day. But yeah, they were very quiet. Apparently, they didn't necessarily show up there with all of their demands they usually show up with. Again, they failed to bring their memorandum, which basically just looks like the memorandum of demands from Russia, not a peace memorandum, but alas. And Russia, according to President Zelensky, quite literally admitted to kidnapping Ukrainian children, which is something that they have been boasting about on Russian TV, but have been denying on the world stage. So that's big. Also, of course, that brings me back to the joke about cards. And to the joke about, rather not a joke, but the meme about cards, where Trump said to Zelensky that he has no cards. Well, looks like he's got all the aces now, because, again, Ukraine is capable of planning and successfully conducting very covert operations that quite literally put Russia not only as the laughingstock of the world, but also we destroyed about, I think the amount was $7 billion worth of aircraft, or destroyed and damaged $7 billion worth of aircraft. And the reason why we're not seeing any retaliation from Russia in the past 2 days, which is very unlike them, because we're kind of living in this state of, okay, how are they going to retaliate, right? is because, well, they already lost a lot of aircraft and it's going to take them time to regroup. However, listen, I'm not, I don't live in the world of crystal castles and I'm not delusional. I know that Russia is going to retaliate. And of course, Russia is going to retaliate onto peaceful Ukrainian cities, onto peaceful Ukrainian civilians. We know that. But here's where I want to bring up this. A lot of people online, especially journalists and especially a lot of publications like the WAPO and the New York Times, have been posting this have been talking about this operation and deeming it the Russian Pearl Harbor as a comparison, mostly because both Pearl Harbor and this Operation Spiderweb were incredibly unexpected for the countries that they were launched on, and also because of the possibility of strong consequences, because Pearl Harbor brought America into World War II. Now, so many intellectual people have used that comparison of Pearl Harbor, and I freaking hate that comparison, and I will explain to you why. Yes, sure, it was a shock to Russia, same as Pearl Harbor was a shock to the United States. And Japan's tactics and them being able to attack so cruelly and so hard was a big shock. And of course, that brought America into World War II because America was attacked by Japan seemingly out of nowhere. Russia was not attacked by Ukraine out of nowhere. Russia has been attacking Ukraine for the past 3.5 years. This is defense for Ukraine, not offense. This is us showing that we can, in fact, win against this strong enemy. And this is Ukraine responding because, let me refresh your memory, Russia has been brutally assaulting Ukrainian cities with ballistics and cruise missiles and drones nightly. Quite literally nightly for the past 3.5 years. Like, we live in a state of will they, won't they tonight every day because, and most nights, they will. We have so many air raids that at this point they're just background noise. So you can't necessarily compare this to Pearl Harbor because it is very different. And again, Russia wasn't attacked out of nowhere by Ukraine. Another thing is, of course, they bring Pearl Harbor as the possibility of the consequences that Russia can unleash onto Ukraine. And people are talking about nuclear retaliation and people are talking about all of these things. Well, Ukraine just showed how we can actually disable Russia's nuclear arsenals and how we can disable Russia's ability to conduct warfare from the territory of Russia by hiring freaking truck drivers and having them deliver the drones to the places where we need them to be at. 170 drones. Plus, which each drone had their own pilot. And we took out, well, again, I'm not going to say destroyed 40 aircraft because that's not true, but destroyed 13, according to the SBU and President Zelensky, and damaged the rest. So we took out of the ability to harm 40 Russian aircraft. There was also a submarine base that had something going on there. So it was a huge attack, and it was done onto the enemy territory from the enemy territory. Russia is not going to do nuclear retaliation. This rhetoric is so deeply annoying and concerning to me. Russia is going to do what Russia always does, and that is send barrages of missiles and barrages of drones and barrages of explosives onto Ukrainian cities, but not onto military infrastructure like Ukraine did to Russia, actually taking out those aircraft that have been hunting us this whole time, right? Russia is going to target peaceful civilians sleeping at night. Russia is going to target peaceful civilians going to work. So this whole talk about retaliation and about like the consequences and all of this stuff, no, we showed Russia that we have a hand. We showed Russia that we have a really good card hand. And we showed Russia to not underestimate us. And we've done that time and time and again. We've destroyed their flagship ship. We've destroyed their literal flagship. We've hit the Crimea Bridge. We've also had drones in Moscow. Every single time Russia has these nuclear red lines, we cross them because that's what you do with Russia. You show them force to shut them up. Again, at these peace talks in Istanbul, apparently this time, while still arrogant, Russians were quite quiet and way less demanding. Why? Because they were dealing with the consequences of a shit show that was happening back in Russia from this little small country, Ukraine, that can't do anything to us because we're big and strong. But Ukraine can, and Ukraine did. Russia understands force. Russia is a terrorist state and they're a bully. The only way that you defeat a terrorist state and a bully is through force. And that's exactly what Ukraine did. And it was brilliant. The operation was also deemed by some other people as titanic, and I actually much prefer that definition. What Ukraine did with this operation, it didn't just hit Russia's killing machines, aircraft. Ukraine weaponized trust. Ukraine weaponized uncertainty, putting Russia in a position where all of their logistics, as I said before, are going to be slowed down. They're going to have to distrust private drivers. They're going to have to check all of the trucks, especially going to key locations. And they're now going to have to live in a state of monitoring and panic. They're also going to have to bury this story to their compatriots because it's been 2 days. They've been trying to come up with a narrative. They've been looking for the people from the above to tell them what the narrative is going to be. And so far, there isn't even a narrative because it's really hard to, spin something like this. They're just going to have to pretend like it didn't happen, and they're going to have to internally bury it. But on the world stage, gosh, is it not getting buried? They are going to be embarrassed for a long time. There was another meme that I thought was so funny. Remember when Polish farmers were blocking Ukrainian trucks from entering? The meme was basically like Polish farmers that were blocking Ukrainian trucks from entering now, and it's them being like, because, maybe now they'll think twice. I thought it was a very, very funny meme. Point is, Russia is in a very, very bad situation. And all of the politicians all over the world, all of the allies are quite literally supporting Ukraine in this operation. It's deemed to be a historical operation that is going to be remembered in books and that is going to be studied and talked about because, again, a brilliant example of asymmetric warfare. And I have really nothing to add about the operation. It was brilliant. It was conducted brilliant. It went as well as it could go. 2 airfields were attacked. It was Alenia and Belaya, and both of these are deep into Russia, and both of these cause Ukrainians a lot of death, damage, and suffering. Another thing is, people keep talking about when they talk about retaliation to this operation, right? They talk about Russia's secret stockpiles. Russia is already using everything it has against Ukraine. They're manufacturing more. In fact, during the times that they're not sending barrages of missiles and drones, it's because they don't have them. They're actually producing them as we speak. So there are no secret stockpiles. Russia is using all resources it has. And we know that because we see them buying from Iran, begging from Iran, buying and begging from North Korea. We see them recruiting soldiers from God knows where. And we also see them asking for soldiers from North Korea. How do people not see the actual real picture here? They're already launching huge strikes when they manage to accumulate enough missiles. Only now it's going to be a lot harder to launch those because they're 40 aircraft short. And to let you know how much that is a lot of aircraft. And what it's going to give Ukraine, it's going to give Ukraine advantage not only in negotiations with Russia, which are a fluke anyway. Russia's not really negotiating. They're just stretching time, and they're just faking and pretending that they're doing diplomacy in order to avoid sanctions that Trump keeps promising and not delivering. Russia has no desire to negotiate. They just have a desire to play and pretend diplomacy just to win some time. But anyways, this is going to give Ukraine a hand in not only slowing down Russia's logistics and not only having the upper hand, but also showing the world that we can and we will, even when we don't have enough. And that is going to let the world want to help Ukraine more because we're capable no matter what. And it's already paying off since Russia has admitted to kidnapping Ukrainian children, which is a huge step. That is all I have for you for today. I hope that you enjoyed this information, and if you would like to hear more information like it, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, turn on all of your notifications, send this video to a friend, like this video, and of course, leave your questions, suggestions, thoughts, constructive criticism, and everything down below in the comments. I do truly read them, and I do really enjoy hearing back from you. Till next time.